My name is Brandon Webb. I guess I'm a ink illustrator. I'm mostly self-taught here, but I was born down south, but like my family moved here when I was like 4 or 5. So like, and then I did the whole move down to Toronto, came back in my 30s and back in North Bay. This type of art, well, I mean, okay, so I guess I've always been drawing and doing all that kind of stuff, and I don't know, since coming into this space specifically, I kind of went through my old sketchbooks and just see how I progressed over the years. But anyway, so drawing like this, like with the watercolors and the brush pens, I want to say maybe a year. So I was mostly just using like dip pens and like the one-time use pens and like all of those. But I was also like really limited to, I guess, what was available to me locally as well. So as a teen, I was really into like manga comics and things like that. But the collection I amassed was basically just like things that kind of almost like drifted ashore in a sense, like just things that ended up in Northern Ontario somehow, and I just somehow got a hold of it. So like a lot of those books, so like Akira, like cyberpunk manga and things like that. Also just like a lot of anime as well, growing up. But I mean, we didn't really have like Pokemon yet or anything like that, so everything you had to do was kind of in secret, and always had like giant robots, or like a lot of the way that I've been drawing lately has been inspired by that and trying to, I guess, relearn that in a sense. So as far as like doing color and that kind of stuff, it was kind of trial and error because I don't work with color very often. I'm still just trying to reteach myself how to do it. So I draw a lot of fan art as well. So I'm into a lot of Ghibli stuff. So like this one I did, I want to say a month ago, maybe. So that's where the using the color is really taken off, and playing with color palettes as far as watercoloring and things like that go. But this one was like mostly just those watercolor pencil crayons, and then you can just do the light wash. But the downside with this is because I used one of these pens, it's not waterproof. I'm not sure which one. One of these pens is waterproof, but anyways, it did start to bleed, so I had to like kind of work within that. But it didn't. I was able to save it, so I mean that's also good as well. So that happens to me a lot. So I had to stay in a hotel this week. It was basically The Shining. It was very, very strange to live in a hotel for a week. But they had just regular paper cups, so it was just like just a free for all, and I raided the maid's cart before I left. So yeah, this one would just be the basic brush pen and watercolor. So in this case here, so you can also use five-point perspective for freeform shapes as well. So like in this is basically I'll just start it out as triangles, and then I just kind of flesh it out from there. So I did do this in pencil first, so this one wasn't so freehand, and I was just sitting in a chair in a hotel room. So I'll do things like that all the time. So I will have bits where I just work in pencil a lot as well. So a lot of these will sit, and also I find my skills tend to go through like a dip where I'll just have days where I'm just having like really crappy turnout, and that's going to happen. That will always happen to you regardless of how well you plan out. But sometimes I'll just come back to something months later, with a more confident mindset and be able to draw them over again and actually draw them a lot better than what I was able to when I initially did this one in pencil. So I mean, it does come in waves as well for me, where I'll just have days where I'm not able to keep up with it. But that's also like the good point of like Inktober as well, is because I'm doing that, I'm kind of forcing myself to at least commit an hour a day to doing all of this. So this one would be from a year ago. So now again, it's the same idea. So also, I mean, a lot of people give up on their initial idea. So in a lot of cases, I'll redraw a lot of the things that I'm doing. In some cases, I will trace though. So in this case, this is how this drawing started out. Very basic, but like at the same time, this is not where I want to leave it. And then as I progress and research it further, so I was able to build it up and get to that. So there is also a huge planning aspect as well. So if you do the bit of planning and actually put in the work to do the drawing, and as well as just get a feel for what you're doing, you'll get a much better result as part of it. So that's also why I use the scratch board as well, is so that I'm not going directly to the work and messing that up and then going from there. So this is the exact same image. So I do this a lot where I'll again redraw something I've done. So this I drew,
I want to say 2 years ago. And again, moleskin, terrible paper, don't recommend it. And then this was about a year ago. So basically I was able to progress it that quickly as well. But this is a lot of this is Inktober from last year. But in this case here, so I worked a lot larger at that time when I was doing this, which I don't know why I did that. Looking back, I wouldn't do it again. No, I guess this is where I started to get a real feel for perspective though. So like looking at this, I can already tell where I've messed up, right? So like this is definitely out of line and it's all wonky. But as I was trying to explain earlier with the, so there's a fan method that was kind of taught to me that to kind of trick the 5-point perspective, so you can go like this and then like that and then like that and then basically get your perspective that way. And it is kind of like a cheat that you can use to kind of draw it that way. But you still want to get that the feel for like the 2-point and 4-point perspectives before you try to just go ahead and do that. So this was elephants. Before drawing this, I had no idea how to draw elephants, and I feel like it was just kind of like a shame. But I was also just kind of playing around with shapes and scales and you know, just different perspectives. So in this case here, this would be a good example of 5-point perspective because we have the initial line, but then we also have them going up in this sense as well. So as you move back, these ones are kind of elevated and you're able to see them from underneath as opposed to down here where it's overhead. So that was another way that you can kind of play with the scales a lot as well, is by drawing things from underneath and then, you know, things in the foreground from above. But I also kind of just got wacky with it and decided to repeat the shapes on a smaller scale, even deeper in. So like the negative space would also be filled in with that as well. And then just kind of threw a mouse in there just to, I guess, for comedic value. I'm not sure what I was saying. But yeah, so this one initially took me a few sessions for me to draw, basically just feeling everything out here. But it's just kind of a pattern repetition. So I mean, basically once I figured out, I think I drew this one first, and once I was able to figure that one out, I was able to apply it everywhere else. So a lot of it is by, I guess, training myself to do that. So this is my coat as well. So I'll do a lot of life drawing as well in between. So it's not just going to be all cartoon characters all the time. So a way that I like to change it up is by drawing from real life and objects that I'm familiar with. Like I was mentioning earlier, so I have been drawing a lot of my plants lately, and just kind of places that I've, I guess, kind of been to or know in real space or am familiar enough in real space to be able to draw them from memory. So these flowers, like as an example, they're outside the public library. So they had these kind of all through kind of COVID isolation. I think I was the only person that actually went out every day. Like whatever, I'm happy that I did. So I would go out every day, and a lot of, especially North Bay was like specifically like overgrown downtown. There's bushes everywhere, bees everywhere. It was a great time to be alive. So in this case here, they have these flowers out front of the public library, and in this case here, I was really learning how to kind of find basic line shapes and everything like that, and then kind of just keep adding detail as I go. So in this case here, so this one was built up really slowly here. So I tend to work left to right. So I drag my hand myself. So I'll put down paper towel, or I'll have tracing paper in some cases, or I'll just keep myself like as clean as I can. Also washing your hands a lot, I find helps. I also keep like hand sanitizer and that. But so in this case here, I just kind of did a study of one or two. So it initially started out as that pink one there, and then the one in the corner, and then I just kind of went from there. And then just kind of kept building it up as I went. So once I found, I'll do like several passes where I'll just do like all the broad strokes first and get a general idea of what's going to be there, and then kind of fill it in deeper. So like in all like the black spots here, if you actually look a lot closer, it's actually all twigs and sticks and, you know, all that stuff that you would find in between those spaces, which is, it's a lot easier than it sounds because you're working on a much smaller scale. So that was remember when there was like nothing in the grocery stores? Mm-hmm. Like there was a time when you just like go to get something very common, like a carton of eggs, and just like, where are all the eggs?
Yeah.
because people were hoarding things. So I remember just going to the grocery store one time and just everything being gone. But then like it was Easter time and I'm like, man, the Easter Bunny's already been doing contactless delivery since the beginning of time. And like that's how this came to be. So I'll also do things where it's just like a joke that I had to myself at one point. And that's how I come up with a lot of ideas. So like I did that one. It was initially when we still thought COVID-19 was, what was it? Someone ate a bat. So at the time, I mean, there was like the toilet paper shortage, everybody was freaking out about masks, no medical supplies, nothing like that. Just everybody was going nonsensical in the place. I guess I was just in my room drawing. Like that's also another part too, is I think I was also a lot better at isolation than most of the people I know. Because like literally everybody I know is straight up panicking and I'm just like, dude, I've been doing this for way longer. And I'm not really fazed by it all that much, but so like not a lot changed for me. I mean, I still go get coffee. I mean, I still go on my walks. It's fine.
Do you have any like final tips and like for the kids to be like don't give up or like don't be too hard on yourself for your initial sketches? Like,
well, I mean, don't get discouraged. I mean, there is going to be a huge margin, especially with social media, and you're going to get caught up in it especially with like the social media aspect and whatnot of just artists that are better than you, and it's a reality of life. But like, don't get discouraged by it. As long as, like I said earlier, as long as it's not the last thing you're drawing, I mean, I feel like that should be okay for you there. And that should be considered the win. If you draw the next day, it's fine. You'll figure it out later. Also, I mean, just there'll be points where I guess you'll be drawing, but like your work's not going to turn out, and that's fine. I mean, you just kind of have to ride that dip a little bit, and like myself, just committing 10 minutes a day, I find does a huge impact. Some days I'll draw more, other days I won't, but as long as I just, get something in there, it's fine. Like this one was done with this is a Pentel micro brush. Same idea as the brush pens, but a lot finer. I find it's not as forgiving and the flow is all crazy and wacky for it. But I was able to get this out of this pen, so I mean, again, not a total loss. So it goes back to like the cyberpunk and that stuff. This one, I forget what I was doing for this one. So I think this was just me playing around with two different inks. So initially I got the idea for a smoke demon, but also an ink demon, kind of like the same deal. Especially with like traditional inks, a lot of it's made by burning lamp oil or things that would cause a lot of carbon and smoke. So they kind of go hand in hand. So I just kind of thought of it as a bit of a god with like a smoke demon kind of deal. That was done. This guy. Yeah, so just that one. This one is a lot older. So this is an example of Sumi ink. So that we use. So this. So basically just traditional Chinese ink and water. And then this is just your basic watercolor paper on white ink. So also, one tip that I will always give is get white ink. So white ink is always something that's, because you're inking in black, so you may as well ink in white as well. But it'll also help you clean up your inking a lot. So that's also another way to kind of get into something else. So I find, so this is waterproof white ink. So they used to use it for paper, but mostly on film. So it was a way to correct film, so it's very opaque and very, so I mean, basically it'll just cover up immediately. You can also use it to like, so like in this case here, I would have used it on the whiskers and like the reflection in the eye, just to kind of clean it up a bit.